that R. It be that S on our chest that got us far. We be them Raiders. We be them Raiders. We be them Raiders. Just wanna be that hater. We be them Raiders. We be them Raiders. We be them Raiders. We be them Raiders. Give me a stack. I'ma turn it to some racks. LA didn't wanna give us a home, but LV got us on the map. That be a fact, I bet it all on silver and black. Hard Carson and Mad Max got me in, but I've been down since the 90s. You don't want the black hole, homie, don't try me. Raiders roll deep, some say that we grind me. But we bring the revenue every time we grindin'. Third and summon, Wallace done. Renfro caught it and now he's spinning. Mariota on third, he's sprinting. R.I.P. Madden on Davis and all of the Raiders fans that we lost since the beginning. It be that R, it be that A, it be that I. Our defense bang. It be that E, it be that R. It be that S on our chest that got us far. We be them Raiders. We be them Raiders. We be them Raiders. Just wanna be the hater.
Shield Squad in the building. What's going on, Raider Nation? It's your boy Chris with Protect the Shield podcast, where my opinions might not always be popular, but they'll always be authentic, man. I appreciate you guys stopping in and hanging out with me, man, on a special conversation gonna have with my guy, man. But before I get to that, man, I want to shout out to some of the people that's in the comments, man. Shout out to my boy TJL in the building, who said Moe Moton is the man. Go Raiders. That is a man. What's up, my boy Billy Davis in the building, man? Appreciate you stopping through. But you know, I want to get right to it, man. I got to bring my guy, the man of the hour, my boy Moe, man. How you doing, sir?
How's it going, my dude, Chris? It's been a while, but like I said, with this intro, sometimes I forget I'm getting on with you. I'm busy jamming in the background. Like, I may need an extra 5 minutes to.
Hey, that's how we do it, man. That's how we do it, man. But I appreciate you taking time to talk to me, man, because I know you're mad busy. I know we kind of talk behind the scenes, man. You had a well-deserved vacation because you're like the hardest working man in showbiz, man. You on CNN 1 minute, then you're like. Hey, man, but how was your vacation? Was all right?
It was good, man. Fortunately, the Raiders didn't do anything crazy because usually around this time, you know, something usually goes down and I got to drop everything that I'm doing and go write up a report, do a show on what the Raiders did. This time they kept it quiet, so I can appreciate that.
Man, that's all we can ask for as Raider fans, man. You know, we always have to deal with some drama, man. So, but yeah, man. So I definitely appreciate it, man. Just some more love in the chat, man. See my boy MG Raiders, Midtown Mo. Yes, sir. Ghostmaster, man. Appreciate you. My boy SoCal Sal. Sun Goddess in the building. Leo, Moe Moton, let's go. Silver and black today in the house. Absolutely, man. But, man, so let's get to it, man. One thing about you have been on the front line about all this malarkey we've been hearing about our boy Davante. You've been hearing, you know, I know they have this little love affair between him and Aaron Rodgers. Of course they miss each other. They've had great success with each other. They're good friends. I mean, they're going to say that and, you know, whatever. But it doesn't always work that way. Just because you miss someone doesn't mean, you know, it's going to come to a trade. But I want to get your whole feelings about it all holistically about this whole Davante Adams trade rumor.
First of all, you ever had an ex that, you know, you don't have hard feelings for and they want you back, but you're like, I moved on, I'm good.
Yeah.
That's what this feels like right now. Like Davante saying, you know, we cool, me and Rodgers cool, no hard feelings or anything. We went our separate ways, but I'm good where I'm at. And he's been consistent with that message. He said it the whole time. He said, look, I'm a Raider. This is where I want to be. Tom Telesco got the job as a GM. He said Davante Adams is a Raider. Now, I would like them to restructure his contract to make that kind of set in stone so that he has his guaranteed money.
Yeah.
But for the most part, the message has been consistent from Davante Adams, from Tom Telesco, from the team, and now his agents coming out today and saying, look, these trade rumors are baseless. You know, basically, let's kill all the chirping. Davante Adams is a Raider. So as you said, I've been on the front lines with this for now over a year because I'm in New York. So a lot of Jets fans are in my family and my circle, and
They
they've
on
been
your
asking
head,
me.
they on your neck.
They've been asking me every week, Mo, what is the percentage? And I've started off at 0.1%. I went to like 0.2% at one point, came
Right.
back to 0.1% to let people know it ain't happening. Hopefully, Schefter's post that you had up just a second ago with his agents again shooting down these trade rumors finally
clear
puts
as
some
day.
cold water on this whole Davante Adams trade stuff. We can finally move on for now. But I know when the trade deadline comes up, if the Raiders are under 500, these rumors are going to come back up again.
Yeah, which rightfully so. I mean, I think if we do struggle, I love Tay, and honestly, I mean, his short time with us, he's become one of my favorite Raiders to wear the silver and black, just because I love his mentality. You know, I keep talking about, like, you know, since I've been a fan, you know, I've never heard someone just always talk about just setting that standard. That standard doesn't change, like, regardless. You know, no excuses. The standard's here, and nothing's going to affect that. So. His mindset is just something that we haven't seen in decades. So, but, you know, I will say, you know, if we do start losing, you know, we probably will have to go ahead and trade him, you know, just blow this whole thing up and just try to get whatever we can for him. But I don't know. I'm just so tired. I'm tired of the rumors because, like you said, he's made it as clear as day. I mean, I don't know how many times. I mean, he said it on I remember on Brandon Marshall's podcast like last year. I mean, he said it multiple times. It's like, come on, people.
You know what's fueling it though is the receiver Netflix series that came out. And exactly. What people don't get is that the series was filmed last year. So this is him talking last year about a quarterback who's no longer on the roster. A lot of his frustration was directed at Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah.
Who's now in Los Angeles as a backup for the Rams. So not only was it last season, but it was directed at a quarterback who's no longer around. And he signed off, as he said on the receiver Netflix series, he signed off on the Raiders benching Jimmy Garoppolo for Aiden O'Connell, who is said to be having the slight edge over Gardner Minshew going into training camp for the starting job. So if you just look at the timeline, the logic behind it, the rumors just don't make any sense at this point.
No, I agree. It's and that's why I think it's so funny, because a lot of us, you know, who dug into this, you know, who've seen last year unfold, you know, we saw the frustrations of Davante, but we understand that by the end of the season, he was happy and he's excited to move on to this next year. But just like you said, this documentary comes out and people act like he's saying it now. You know, like he's slamming his helmet now and talking about, I got to get out of here before I get killed now. Like, you know, we're talking about this happened, 6 months ago or whatever, maybe longer. So,
exactly.
Yeah, I don't know, man. But, you know, it's just like we talked about. It's just that time of year, but before training camp. And I don't know. It's just some of our fans just need to pump the brakes, man. And all the haters out there, especially out there in New York with you, calm down. Davante's ours, man.
But you know what it is too, Chris? People need their Elon bucks. So you know how it is. It's set up now where you can get paid for views on your posts and everything like that. So people want to say something wild to get their views up. You know, get their Elon bucks up. I get it, but look, this ain't the time for that. We can shut down all the rumors. Save your Elon bucks for another subject, another time. Hey, Brandon Ayuk has just requested a trade today. Go bother the 49er fans.
Go bother the 40.
Go bother them. They got a wide receiver who's clearly unhappy and wants to get paid or get moved. That's where the Jets fans should direct their energy right now.
Right. No, for sure. It's yeah, no, I agree 1,000%. I agree 1,000. So, kind of shifting a little bit. So a lot of people are big into this NCAA, 25, the game that came out. And of course, Madden's coming out next month. But I got to ask you, so there was a list that came out, speaking of John Madden, of the top 10 head coaches of all time. And here's a list, and I want to get your thoughts on it, because I saw some Raider fans kind of losing their mind because Madden wasn't in there. And I'm always that fan that's like the objective fan. And people call me a hater because I try to be objective. But is John Madden a top 10 head coach of all time to you?
I don't know how I feel about Joe Gibbs at 8. I mean, if I'm
That is
looking at
high.
this, I mean, looking at this list, all these guys on here are obviously legit. But Joe Gibbs at 8 will probably, if I'm going to put John Madden on this list and take somebody off, because anytime you see a list, right, and somebody wants to put someone on the list, I'm always saying, well, who are you going to take
We're gonna
off?
take
that
off.
list?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the only name that stands out to me that I would possibly remove is Joe Gibbs. And maybe it's because I'm a younger fan who watched Joe Gibbs be a mediocre, not so good head coach when he came back. I understood he.
Oh yeah,
Before,
that
before
was
that much better, obviously, and that's why he's on this list. But if I were to remove someone, it would be Joe Gibbs.
Okay. No, I see that. Yeah, cause Joe, his first time around, he was a dog. But I think he only got one Super Bowl though. But he had those 49er teams were pretty tough. I'm not 49er, but Redskins. But but I mean there's other even coaches that I could probably put in there before Madden. You know, I love Madden, but I just don't know if I would put him in my top 10 though. I don't know.
You know what it is too, and I'm sure it's a lot of the younger Raider fans obviously will want Madden on the list because they're Raider fans, right?
Yeah.
But the other thing is, if you are a younger fan, let's say younger than 40, and you grew up playing the Madden video game and him being a broadcaster and being that iconic figure, I'm not to say that his accomplishments are diminished here, but he was beyond, like, from a head coach to what he was as a head coach. You see him as this iconic figure, and you think, why John Madden has to be on this list because of everything he's done for the game and how he's represented the game. So I kind of understand where people are coming from with why isn't John Madden on this list?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I just saw it, thought it was definitely interesting. But I mean, there's some heavyweights on here. But like you said, I do think Gibbs would probably be the weak link there. I think Paul Brown, he just did so much just for the game as well. But that's going way old school, back with the Browns and the Bengals and stuff like that. But
you know what though? I'm not gonna disrespect Joe Gibbs though, because he does have 3 Super Bowls with Washington. John, Madden only has 1. So I guess if you're saying
he had 3?
Yeah, he had 3.
Oh shoot.
So,
okay. Oh, yeah. Okay.
So again, like, if you're an older fan, you remember those 3 Super Bowls because some of them back in the 80s. I think 2 of them were in the 80s, 1 in the early 90s. So if you're an older fan, you would go, "Oh no, Joe Gibbs, 3 Super Bowls, he's got to be there."
Yeah.
But again, if you remember the end of his coaching career, then you're like,
"Oh yeah, it was terrible." Yeah.
But John Madden was to my memory, one of the winningest head coaches in history. So that's why I would say, okay, maybe I wouldn't put John Madden in the top 10, but he's definitely an honorable mention at least.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, because like the first thought I had was because I didn't realize Joe Gibbs. Maybe it's because when I was living, maybe I only saw like 1 or 2, but I was thinking Parcells. Bill Parcells. He had some good. He had a good reign, and honestly, he's, he was kind of the one that mentored Belichick. So that was one of the guys that I kind of thought was on the list. But I'm not mad at having Madden in the top 15 or so. But 10, I was just like, I don't know.
The Super Bowls hold a lot of weight. Again, while his teams were always in the mix. In the playoff mix and all of that, 1 Super Bowl, he would need multiple to make that list.
For sure. Yeah, I just thought that was interesting because I also saw, I'm sure you probably saw, like, the CBS did like their top ranked coaches currently. So this was like the top 10. Which, to me, the Jim Harbaugh thing drives me nuts. it drives me insane. And again, I'm a Michigan fan. It drives me insane. And then just kind of looking at the bottom half of that was here. So, it had Antonio Pierce at 28. Does any of this stick out to you as far as like, man, somebody is way too high, somebody is way too low? Does anyone that stick out to you?
First of all, how is Dave Canals 24th and he hasn't coached a game yet?
A game.
Antonio Pierce actually took over a team. They were better with him. How is he below?
Yeah.
A coach who hasn't even a head coach who just got hired months ago. I don't understand. That stood out to me immediately. Jonathan Gannon, I would put him a little lower. I understand Kyler Murray was hurt, but the Cardinals they have a lot to prove, and I don't think Jonathan Gannon has really proven anything as a head coach. As a defensive coordinator for the Eagles, yes, but as a head coach, not so much. So I would probably bump Antonio Pierce up over those two guys automatically. Mike McDowell, another one, hasn't coached the game, but he's 25th.
Right.
So I'm wondering, are these rankings based on what they've done as coordinators, and that's why they're a little higher because Dave Canales did well with Baker Mayfield and reinvigorated his career. Mike McDowell has 2 top 10 scoring defenses in Baltimore, and that defense was elite. So maybe he's factoring in what they did as coordinators because there's no way this is purely based on head coaching.
Can't
because
be. Can't be.
Two of these guys haven't even coached a game yet.
Yep. I mean, and then even like I said the other day, even the Jets coach, I mean, as a coordinator, he was top notch himself, and you know he had a pretty good first couple years as a Jets coach, but he just didn't have a quarterback. They were looking to kind of make some moves last year, but the unfortunate thing with Rodgers happened. But I mean, putting him at 29, I mean, he's one of those guys that like if we didn't have AP, he would be the type of coach I would like, honestly. So.
And if you're factoring in years as a coordinator, he would be higher then.
Oh yeah, for sure. So
there's some
I don't know. I just always like looking at these lists, and 9 times out of 10, I never agree with them. I'm like, who comes up with this stuff, man? It just drives me crazy. But so you know, main thing I want to talk to you about, man, is training camp. You know, it's right around the corner. I believe the rookies come on Saturday? Is it Saturday? Saturday
or Sunday? I think the 21st, which is 21st is Sunday.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. So, I think they report the 20th. In fact, I think they report the 20th. Maybe their first practice, the 21st. Let me double check. Yeah. Yep. So they report on the 20th, and they have their 3-day pre-camp warm up. And then the veterans come on the 23rd. So I'm excited, man. You know, one thing that I was kind of looking at is that's different than the other years. We don't have no joint practices. So what are your thoughts on that? Because me personally, I wasn't too thrilled when I found out we're not doing any joint practices. I think we tend to get a lot out of it besides the constant fights that we've had, you know, in the previous years, though. But what's your thoughts? I mean, do you have a preference on doing the joint practices? Do you think they're beneficial?
I don't have a preference, but I think they're beneficial simply because I've listened to other coaches say that they get more out of joint practices than they do actual preseason games because a lot of older veterans don't play in those preseason games.
Yeah.
Or, you know, certain players don't suit up. So you see a lot of these joint practices when you're going up against players that are not within your locker room. So there's some unfamiliarity there instead of guys that you're with all the time when you're at the practice facility. It's good to go up against people outside of your building to kind of test, a little bit of a measuring bar there. So I want to say I was shocked that there weren't joint practices, but I'm wondering what the reason behind it is. And I do think it's beneficial to have them. So I necessarily don't think it'll hurt the Raiders. Maybe they'll go harder in these preseason games. We don't know because remember, this is the first year under Antonio Pierce. Josh McDaniels is running the ship. The last 2 years during the preseason. So maybe Antonio Pierce has a different approach and he's going to do things differently during these preseason games. Is my thought.
Yeah, because honestly, me personally, I think that we can't sit and be as conservative in preseason as we have been. Because we're going to have to hit the ground running for one, and we got to figure out who our daggone quarterback's going to be.
Quarterback is.
Yeah, like we can't have what's the name, Anthony Brown doing 3 quarters. You know what I'm saying? Or like I don't want that. I mean, because last year, I mean, thankfully, Aiden played basically all the pretty much all of the preseason. So he got a lot of reps at that point. But, I don't want to see Anthony Brown having 3 quarters and then, Gardner and Aiden only like splitting, a quarter. Like we really got to see them when the bullets are flying. Who's going to win this thing and take us to the next level, man? That's my thoughts.
And I think you're going to see a lot of the offensive line play minus Andre James and Colton Miller. Colton Miller also rehabbing, I believe, a shoulder injury. But the offensive line, and I wrote about this recently on Sportsnot, the Raiders have a bit of a youth movement on the offensive line. So JPJ, Jackson Powers Johnson, could be your starting left guard, a rookie. Then Dylan Parham, although he's in his 3rd year, he's moving over to right guard from left guard. So you want to see how he looks at his new position. And then you got Fair Mumford Jr., who did rotate with Jermaine Illuminar last year and played on the opposite side of the line for Colton Miller filling in for him. It's his full-time job now. So you want to see how he looks in that full-time position, knowing it's his job. Right. So I think with that offensive line playing a lot, you want to see your quarterbacks both play a lot behind a pretty solid offensive line, so you can get a good measuring stick of what they can be or who they are, who's in the lead between Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell, who can play better behind that line. So I think you're right about that. The Raiders need to go a lot harder in the preseason because you want to see what the supporting cast is going to look like with Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew. I'm not saying necessarily you want to play Davante Adams 2-3 quarters, but give Trey Tucker significant time. Michael Mayer, Brock Bowers, give those guys, some significant snaps so you can see what the offense might look like come the regular season.
Yeah, no, I agree. Because honestly, especially on that offense, man, it's like we have to figure out that quarterback position. I think we're all kind of worried, at the end of the day. I know we kind of talked before, but where are you standing as of July 16th? What do you think we need to do at quarterback? Who, we kind of know who's going to get the first nod, but what's your comfort level on, who's going to be the day one guy and so forth?
Can't say I'm pretty sure that Aiden O'Connell will be the week 1 starter, but it makes the most sense because even though the Raiders signed Gardner Minshew to a 2-year, $25 million deal with $15 million guaranteed, don't you want to see what Aiden O'Connell could be? I think, just being honest with your audience and you, I think he's a high-level backup. But I could be wrong. What if he's not? What if, because Kirk Cousins was a 4th-round pick, doesn't have much mobility, and he's 4 Pro Bowls in his career. Dak Prescott, multiple Pro Bowls, 3-time Pro Bowl quarterback. He was a 4th-round pick. More mobility, of course, but just because a player was drafted in the 4th round doesn't mean they're destined to be a backup of any level. They could surprise you and exceed expectations. So I'm interested to see what Aiden O'Connell looks like with year 2 progression and while taking first-team reps in the offseason. Remember, Jimmy Garoppolo was deemed the starter right from the jump. So Aiden O'Connell was getting all the backup reps. This year is different because he's getting those first-team reps. He's playing with Davante Adams and Jacoby Myers. He's playing behind that first-string offensive line, and he could have a lot of progression. He can have a lot of development, and you're not going to be able to see that unless he's taking those live bullets, as you said, on the field. He's not going to grow holding a clipboard watching Gardner Minshew play. He's going to have to play. If you want to gauge his development, what he can be, he has to get on the field. And by the way, and I said this when the schedule was released, the fact that they play the Chargers helps Aiden O'Connell. Now, I know they have a new coaching staff, some new players, but a lot of those players are still there. Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, Denzel Perryman, Derwin James Jr., Asante Samuel Jr., all those guys were there last year. They're there this year. Aiden O'Connell saw them twice and played well against them the second time. He had a decent game the first time for his first ever start. Now, he had the turnovers, but he still almost won that game for the Raiders. Now, there was a last possession turnover that sealed it for the Chargers, but he wasn't bad in that first game. So he has seen this defense, a lot of those players, twice, and he has the confidence of being part of that big blowout victory where the Raiders scored a franchise high on the scoreboard, I believe 63 points. So I think having the Chargers in that week 1 really helps Aiden O'Connell's case. I know the Raiders are going to say we want to play the best quarterback, but believe me, these things play into the decision-making process.
Yeah. No, I can see that because actually that is a good point from a confidence standpoint. He was probably out of all the teams, that's probably who he would want to see because he's had,
Exactly.
he had a great game against them. He is
He lit
familiar
them
with
up.
them.
Hmm.
And the thing is, only thing that worries me a little bit is their defensive coordinator was Michigan's old defensive coordinator, which I think one thing about him, he's just going to blitz the heck out of us, which is easy to beat if you know how to handle it. But it could be a long day because that first game, that daggone defensive line was killing them. They were killing Aiden. So I'm just curious on how that's going to look on day one or week one. When that comes up.
The other thing I will say though with Gardner Minshew is with this battle, unless Gardner Minshew looks a whole lot better than Aiden O'Connell, I think Aiden O'Connell gets a start because if they're even Steven, you probably go with the younger quarterback
Yeah, it
who
makes more sense.
presumably has more upside, right? So if Gardner Minshew winds up starting week one, which I wouldn't be mad at either, it would clearly mean that he was obviously the better quarterback, from the training camp, from the start training camp through the preseason. So that's just something to note right there. But
Yeah,
again, when
good
Antonio Pierce gets in front of the microphone, he's going to say, look, whoever's the best quarterback gets the job. But we all know coaches, GMs value upside. And Aiden
Oh yeah.
O'Connell, even as a fourth round pick with limited mobility, has some upside, has more upside than Gardner Minshew right now.
Yeah, and plus, at the end of the day, I mean, we gotta be real. What's best for the team is for Aiden to just come out of here and play well. That's what's best for the team. Now, do I think he's the better quarterback? People know kind of where I stand. I'm more of a Minshew guy, but I would love for AOC just to come and just have a heck of a camp, heck of a preseason, and just hit the ground running. I would love it from a financial standpoint. I think it'll be great. I think his teammates will really rally behind him. Because what I hear, he's becoming more of a vocal leader. He's more confident. So I'm excited for that. So I just hope it happens. But he's got to prove it, man. He's got to prove it.
I would say today, Gardner Minshew is probably the better quarterback. But if you've read the reports, and I didn't put a lot on these reports because it's spring, no pads. Gardner Minshew is learning the offense. Aiden O'Connell, not very mobile, new offensive coordinator, new system. So while Aiden O'Connell is familiar with his teammates, he is learning a new system under Luke Getsy. So you got two guys basically learning a new system. The reports came out that the quarterback competition for the Raiders wasn't so inspiring. Guys were, misfiring their throws, interceptions were thrown. But that's what practice is all about. That's what you get your mistakes out. I remember when Patrick Mahomes had his first preseason or his first training camp as the bona fide starter after the Chiefs moved on from Alex Smith, and he threw a bunch of interceptions, and people were like, oh, this is what we saw from him in college. He's going to throw a bunch of interceptions. But this is the time now in the summer, late spring, early summer. You get your mistakes out. You experiment with what you got. And you make your mistakes because you say, okay, this didn't work. We won't do that again. This worked. We'll do that again. And that's what learning and that's what development is all about. So I'm not too worried about the reports coming out of camp about the quarterback competition. I'm just really interested to see how much upside Aiden O'Connell has. Now, again, I was sort of like you at the beginning of the offseason where I said Gardner Minshew's got to start. The Raiders paid him a decent amount of money as bridge gap quarterback money. I like Minshew's mobility a lot more than Aiden O'Connell's because we know Aiden O'Connell's very limited there.
Right.
Minshew can extend play. So if the offensive line isn't stellar, he can buy those receivers sometimes. So Minshew's always going to have that edge over him. But what I look at is, okay, Aiden O'Connell has the arm strength, may not have the accuracy all the time because he can overshoot guys too.
Yeah.
But I'm willing to see if he's able to read defenses a lot better than he did last year and stretch the field. Because if he's able to stretch the field, that will make Davante Adams happy. And then we don't have to hear about these stupid trade rumors during the season.
Exactly.
Because I'm not saying Gardner Minshew has no arm, but Aiden O'Connell has a stronger arm than Gardner Minshew. And if you're talking about the vertical passing game, which Raider fans are in love with because of the genesis of the team and what the playmakers that they have with Trey Tucker and Davante Adams, if you have a guy that can stretch the defense and throw downfield, that's going to be big for the offense.
Right. Yeah, he's with Davante kind of, giving him that cosign, I think someone put that in the comments, let's be real. The reason Getsy's here is because of Davante. You know, he signed off on that. I don't care what nobody says. He signed off on that.
Yeah.
But you know, I guarantee whoever Davante wants, that's who's going to start. But I will say, I think some people kind of took what he said out of context when he was saying that, you know, I think that Aiden, you know, kind of has the job, but you know, he didn't really say that. He was more or less saying that, you know, he probably has an upper hand now because he's been there before, like he was been there last year. But Davante also say, I don't have a preference. I want whoever is going to play better when the live bullets are happening, and I think that's what we have to really think about when the live bullets are happening. Now in OTAs, it's kind of a safe environment. You can't really get touched. But when them live bullets happen and you got to really scramble and you're not going to have a clean pocket, you're not going to have your red jersey on that you can't be touched. Like things get real, man. And I do like the fact that Howie Long called Gardner a gamer, man. And sometimes you may not show it in practice, but when them bright lights come on, you game. So I don't know.
I think Vic Tafer said this, and it was a very good point that OTAs, you're not really doing too much. It's more of a structured environment for quarterbacks, especially just kind of planting and throwing. And that favors Aiden O'Connell because you don't see his lack of mobility. His lack of mobility isn't a problem at that time. Whereas Gardner Minshew, if you watch Gardner Minshew play, even going back to his time with the Jacksonville Jaguars, you can go back to Washington State if you want. I mean, the way he plays, I want to say it's out of structure, but it's more, it has more of a backyard football feel to it.
It does.
And I'm not gonna say that he's sloppy with it, because there are times where he can kind of hold on to the ball a little too long and make some unnecessary moves out in and out of the pocket. But when you get to preseason games and you're going up against a live defense, right? And guys on the other team are trying to make the squad, so they're trying to get sacks, they're trying to generate pressures. I think that could favor Gardner Minshew, where if he has to move, and Raider fans are going to see this during the preseason games, I'm sure he's going to get pressured on a play, and he's going to be able to move out of the pocket and throw a dart downfield that people are going to be like, we need more of that. And there are going to be moments maybe when Aiden O'Connell gets sacked, and you're like, man, if he was a little more mobile, he could have been able to evade that. So I'm just pointing that out, that when you look at the mobility, and I've harped on this a lot, mobility is a big thing with me, as a lot of people know.
Right.
Gardner Minshew is going to make some spectacular plays that are going to make you go, wow. And you're going to be like, whoa, Aiden O'Connell can't do that. But Aiden O'Connell, as I just said a minute ago, where he makes up for it is he can stretch a defense with his arm, and that's where he's going to wow you.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. It's going to be interesting. I mean, because they both have, you know, a certain skill set that, you know, we can use, you know, both skill sets. So, you know, we really won't know until preseason comes, you know, to be quite honest. So I do have a question. How do you feel, like, I would say your comfort level, like rank it from, or rate it from 1 to 10 on how you feel going into this training camp with the current players, and I want you to rank it based off emotionally, like how you feel, and then give me another rank logically, kind of where your brain's at.
Emotionally, I feel I'm just a little over the fence at about a 6 emotionally. Okay. If I would have put my fan cap on and say I'm a Raider fan, I'm not writing for any publication. You know, I'm not doing this professionally. I'm just a Raider fan watching my team. I want my team to win. I would be at about a 6 right now, simply because I would be so worried about obviously the quarterback position, which we talked about. Yeah. But I'm worried about the offensive coordinator. And I know part of the reason why Luke Getsy wasn't successful in Chicago is because Justin Fields had his mistakes, his errors, and I get that. But let's remember, the Raiders won at Cliff Kingsbury, and he basically left the Raiders at the altar for Washington. Yeah. He's got Jay Daniels now. And the Raiders felt, I don't want to say Luke Getsy was at the bottom of the pile, but Luke Getsy was kind of the fallback plan. And you just said it. I mean, he got that job probably because of his connection with Davante Adams. Doesn't mean he won't do well, but when you look at a lot of these quarterbacks, and you look at these quarterbacks who take these big leaps, and we're hoping if Aiden O'Connell does start, he takes this big leap, or if Gardner Minshew does start, he looks like a serviceable quarterback. A lot of people forget that a lot of it is the play caller too. Like, the play caller has a big role in how well your offense is playing and operating. And I had this discussion. I don't know if I was on with you when I spoke about this. A lot of Raider fans thought Jimmy Garoppolo was going to be the second coming of Rich Gannon because he played in the Super Bowl with the 49ers. He was good with the 49ers. And I said, whoa, pump the brakes, people.
That's Cal
Shanahan.
Yeah.
He's not bringing Shanahan with him to Las Vegas. So you're not getting the same Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, it became very clear that we weren't getting the same Jimmy Garoppolo that we saw in San Francisco. And even if you watch a lot of those San Francisco 49er games, Jimmy Garoppolo would routinely miss guys. There were stretches where Kyle Shanahan would just run the football.
Yeah.
Not let Jimmy throw it.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember like one game, didn't he only throw it like 6 times or something?
6 times.
Yeah, it's like
and that's what worries me. I'm not saying Luke Getsy is gonna be, Josh McDaniels bad when it comes to this offense, but how much is he gonna be able to elevate Aiden O'Connell? How much is he gonna how well is he gonna be able to put Gardner Minshew in positions to succeed with this set of playmakers? Now the Raiders have a great set of playmakers. You can go down a list. Davante Adams, Jacoby Myers, Trey Tucker, Michael Mayer, Brock Bowers, Zamir White in the backfield, decent offensive line. He has all the supporting cast around him, but it comes down to can the offensive coordinator use all those playmakers and be able to get those guys the ball? Is Davante Adams going to be wanting more targets by week 5? He's going to be complaining that he's only getting 7 targets in the game because that would be a problem.
Yeah.
Is Luke Getsy going to be able to incorporate everyone in that offense so that to keep defenses on their heels so the offense isn't predictable? The play caller matters. So Gardner Minshew played well last year, but he had Shane Steichen. And if you remember, Shane Steichen was with Justin Herbert when Justin Herbert broke rookie passing records. Yeah. Shane Steichen was with the Philadelphia Eagles when the Philadelphia Eagles went to the Super Bowl and Jalen Hurts looked like he was on his way to being one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Yeah. Jalen Hurts took a step back after Shane Steichen went to Indianapolis last year. So these coordinators, these play callers matter a lot. And if I'm a fan, I'm thinking, yeah, we got these weapons. Aiden O'Connell could be that guy. Gardner Minshew could be good. But what about the play caller? Now, logically speaking, I'm thinking with my brain, I projected the Raiders would be 8-9. So I probably would be about a 4. As logically thinking, I would be a little higher as a fan. Like, okay, we got these weapons, maybe that can make it better. But logically speaking, I'm putting it all together. And again, I love the defense. The defense could be top 3, top 5 this year with Christian Wilkins added to the mix after being ninth in scoring last year. But you got to score some points. And I said this on Silver and Black today on my show that dropped today that, yeah, you can have a great defense, but you're going to have to put some points on the board. The Raiders literally lost the game last season 3-0 because they couldn't put any points on the board. Yeah. That can happen this year.
It can't.
It can't happen this year with all the playmakers that it can't happen. So the defense is going to be great. But how far is the offense going to go? How many steps is going to take in the right direction? It goes back to my worry about their offensive coordinator, Luke Getsy. How well will he be able to put this whole thing together?
Yeah, that's a good point. So I will say with Getsy, one thing I'm not worried about is him being able to feed the ball to Davante. I think that's probably the lead because even if you go back to his time in Chicago, DJ Moore had career years. Under 2 years, under Getsy. He was able to feed him the rock. So I'm not worried about that. Even now, well, let me ask you this. So do you put any stock into what he did when he was a pass game coordinator in Green Bay? Because I know he really wasn't calling plays, So what I mean, in theory, Davante had some of his great seasons. I think when he was also wide receiver coach, Jordy Nelson he was a comeback player of the year that year. So I don't know. But do you put any stock in any of that?
A little bit of stock. And someone asked me this question on Twitter, and I did the research and digging on this with the Packers. When Luke Getsy was the passing game coordinator for the Packers, the way the Packers set up their passing game, they split up the duties. So they had their offensive line coach handle like goal line or like third downs. Luke Getsy had a specific job where he was like goal line or third downs. And then another guy would handle it when they were in different situations. So, and you see this now, and I notice you see this now across the league where you have a passing game coordinator, but he's not necessarily in charge of all the passing games, so to speak. They just kind of rotate the duties where, okay, if we're on first and second down, this is the guy that's going to call the play or run the offense. If we're at the goal line, this guy's going to make the call. If we're on third downs, this guy's going to make the call. And that's what the Packers sort of had when Luke Getsy was the passing game coordinator, where he wasn't the sole passing game coordinator. There were multiple guys calling the plays for the passing game. So I put a little bit of stock on it. I would put more stock on, as you mentioned, what he did with Chicago. So you mentioned DJ Moore had career numbers last year, which he did.
Yeah.
The other thing is Cole Kmet. Once Luke Getsy got to Chicago, Cole Kmet took a large jump with his production. He saw a huge uptick in his receiving numbers. So one of the things that I talked about when Luke Getsy was hired, and a lot of Raider fans were down on it, was one thing I do expect is the tight ends are going to eat Michael Mayer and Brock Bowers, because he's worked well with Cole Kmet. And if he can work well with Cole Kmet, who's much less athletic and much less dynamic than Brock Bowers,
and Mayer,
he should be, those two, Mayer and Bowers, should be a nightmare matchup for opposing defenses. So I really like what's going on with the tight end position for the Raiders. Even let's say if Trey Tucker gets lost in the sauce, because Brock Bowers did line up a lot in the slot at Georgia, I think that could come at the expense of Trey Tucker's snaps a little bit. I'm a little worried about his role. Yeah. I'm a little worried about Trey Tucker's role, but if it means getting your first round pick, your top 15 pick involved, a guy who could be a future Hall of Famer, dare I say, then you got to do it.
Yeah. No, that's that. I'm actually glad you said that, because I was, I was debating with my brother on my show, or on our show, the Raiders Syndicate, and I did pose a question of, who, like, would you rather see, because we're all talking about the 12 personnel, but would you rather see that, or would you rather see Trey Tucker on the field? And I actually am of the mindset of, I want to see Trey Tucker. Like, honestly, I think he is going to have a huge step up. And my reasoning is because we already know how explosive he is, how fast he is. But I think he's going to be the type of guy that, from everything that we're hearing, I mean, we heard what AP said about him, that he's probably having the best offseason out of everyone. But if Trey Tucker can mess around and get his feet together where he can run the whole route tree, there's going to be no stopping that guy, man. So I don't know, man. I think he could bring an element that we haven't seen in a long time, man.
In that case, if you're saying, okay, Trey Tucker or Brock Bowers, you got to mix it up. I think it really depends on matchup. And this goes back to my Luke Getsy conversation. Your offense coordinator has to be able to pick up matchups that are favorable for your offense. So if your opposing team has a slow cornerback on Trey Tucker's side of the field, you're going to run Trey Tucker with that speed. If the opposing defense has a weak middle, they can't cover the middle of the field and the shallow routes, then you're going to want Brock Bowers on the field. If you want a zone beater, you want Brock Bowers on the field. So it's going to depend on the matchups. It's going to be a chess match. And I think, again, a lot of people don't pay attention to the chess match between the offensive play caller and defensive play caller, because a lot of times that's where games are won. A defensive coordinator puts the wrong coverage out there, and an offensive coordinator is able to take advantage on it.
Exactly.
And I think that's where Luke Getsy can make his calls between, okay, do I have Trey Tucker in on a slot, or do I have Brock Bowers in the slot, or do I have Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer together in 12 personnel? He's going to have to be able to figure that out on the fly.
So do you see Bowers playing any of the traditional type of tight end at all? Because I know that was another thing we're talking about. I know he split out a lot. I mean, they move him everywhere. But, I mean, I would almost prefer seeing more of Bowers and Tucker on the field together. But do you think that we even see much of that due to, Mayer being considered a better blocker?
Mayer is probably your more traditional tight end. And I think the night that the Raiders drafted Brock Bowers, I said this, he's going to be an oversized wide receiver. Yeah. At least very early, like the first half of the season, because there were a lot of questions about his blocking. We had this guy, Chip Towers, on from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, talk about Brock Bowers blocking. And the question was that, is Brock Bowers blocking subpar? And it wasn't that it's subpar. Chip Towers said that he blocked well. It's, can he block that well on the pro level at 200? He was about 240 at Georgia. Mm-hmm. So he's going to have to bulk up a bit. And then they'll find out how he can hold up his blocks on the pro level closer to 250 pounds. But I think until he does that, you'll see Michael Mayer in a traditional tight end role. So you'll see less of maybe Brock Bowers and Trey Tucker on the field versus Michael Mayer and Trey Tucker on the field at the same time.
Yeah, and that's kind of what my pushback was. Is, I know it is kind of we think of Mayer just being such a much better blocker, but like I've never really heard of Bowers just being like a trash blocker. Now, yeah, he may not be a guy that's just old school Mike Ditka just tearing people up, but I wouldn't say that he's just a bad blocker. But like you say, I think the good thing is we have so many weapons for almost anything that the defense throws at us. We should be able to have something to combat that, and that's what I love about it. Is if we have a team that can't stop the run, then hey, we can put in an extra tight end and run it down their throat. Or if, like you say, they got a couple slow cornerbacks out there, hey, let's put some of these fast guys out there and spread them out.
Let's not forget about Harrison Bryant, their third tight end. He was a John Mackey. I didn't know this, but he was also a John Mackey Award winner for most outstanding tight end on the college level. So he had his heyday. Yeah, he had his heyday, and he had some flashes when he played with the Browns. He has good hands where he can catch up, as a tight end. So you can even mix in Harrison Bryant in there if the blocking isn't up to par. Let's say there's a need on the right side of the line, on the strong side. You want to pick up some blocks over there, insert Harrison Bryant, because to me the Raiders have the potential to have the best tight end room in the league between Michael, with Michael Mayer and Brock Bowers and Harrison Bryant. That to me, that's the best tight end trio easily in the league.
And plus, I mean, and Brian, and the reason is just me living in Ohio, I had a chance to see him quite a bit, with the Browns, because my dad's a Browns fan, so I would watch games with him. But I mean, he was the reason that they felt comfortable getting rid of Austin Hooper. I mean, they were always waiting for Njoku to kind of take that step up, but they were okay saying sayonara to Hooper, because Bryant he played pretty well, when asked, and he is a good blocker, so I think that's key. That's definitely key.
And so can the Raiders balance this all? Because there's no way. You have we just talked about all of these playmakers. There's no way the Raiders shouldn't average more than 24 points a game. And that's what Antonio Pierce said during the press conference. He said he was joking, but he was still kind of serious, saying, look, at minimum, we need 24 points on the board per game. And I think that should be the low bar right there with the playmakers that they have right now.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And again, it's and we should be able to do it in any weather condition. Like we're actually built to do a little bit of everything. Because like even if you think of like the Mahomes, I mean he may not be a good example, but just like some of those teams that are only good, like probably the Saints, or Miami, like they're not going to be able to really bang out in some of them cold weather games and have some of those, whereas we're going to be able to do that. But if we need to open it up, we can open it up as well. So it is on Getsy to make it happen. I guess time will tell.
Because someone asked me this, and I thought it was an interesting question, and said, if the Raiders offense looks basically a carbon copy of what it looked like last year, do the Raiders fire Getsy and hire a different offensive coordinator? Or do they give him a chance to rot it out? And because you got a very delicate situation with Davante. Right. So if the offense isn't clicking again, he's frustrated like he was on that Netflix series, The Receiver.
He's going to get out of there.
You got to do something or you're going to lose Davante. And I know some Raider fans out there will say, well, good. Let him go somewhere else because we're not a team that's on his timeline. And it's like, look, to me, and some Raider fans push back on me when I say this, the Raiders are a quarterback away from being a perennial player.
Exactly.
They are literally a quarterback away. And I posted this on Twitter. Every offseason, the Raiders are projected to be last in the division and win 3-4 games. I have people on my show, Silver and Black Today, who come on and say, yeah, I have the Raiders only winning 3-4 games. And the reality is the Raiders have been around 500. They've been a mediocre 500 team for most of the last half decade.
Yeah.
If they just get a quarterback in there who can elevate that offense, they're a double-digit win team, especially now with the way the defense is playing. Christian Wilkins added to the mix. This is a perennial playoff contender. They just need to find the quarterback. Find the right quarterback, and you have a team that's consistently contending year after year after year.
It almost reminds me of how people were feeling about the Jets before they got Aaron Rodgers. You know, that's all they needed was a quarterback. I mean, that Jets defense was very special that year, and I think ours is going to be special. But yeah, just and it's not even like we need a Aaron Rodgers type performance from the quarterback. Just be good in the red zone. Don't turn the ball over. Make good decisions. That's it. That's it. I mean, I know the whole Trent Dilfers of the world and what Brad Johnsons, you know, like those guys don't exist. I mean, you can't really win like that in today's game. You got to be able to have someone that can put some points up. But you know, we don't need the next Mahomes to really make a good run, man. We just need someone that's competent. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
Because if it doesn't happen, you know, by the time the trade deadline comes, people are going to be looking, okay, who's coming out of the draft? Who can we get? Who's going to declare? You know, what can we get out of the draft? And we need a top 10 pick, because I don't like this narrative, but there are a lot of people that said, see, if we had just lost another game here or two,
man, I know
we could have got a quarterback. We could have got Michael Penix. We could have got Bo Nix. But I push back and I say, well, if you lose a game or two, the Raiders may not have hired Antonio Pierce.
Oh, they don't.
So,
they don't.
So you either get the wins and maybe get the quarterback, or you don't have Antonio Pierce, and who knows what you have as a head coach.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I hated that mentality of even before those games. They're like, why are we trying to win meaningless games? I'm like, honestly, the reason that locker room is the way it is right now is because those guys want to win. These guys aren't packing it up just to. I mean, these guys care, and that goes back to what I was saying about Davante and Max. Like, they have a standard, you know, and they're not going to even let the Marcus Peters of the world come in and half-ass it with an added. Like, they're not going to let that happen. I mean, AP's not going to let it happen. So, yeah, I don't know, man. It's sometimes our fans, man, the whole tanking thing. Like, honestly, the tanking thing drives me nuts, man. It drives me nuts every single time I hear about it. I can't stand it. I can't stand it.
Can you imagine sweating it out at practice all week just to hear people say, well, yeah, just take a loss.
Right. Like, imagine Max. Like, Max, comes in at like 5 a.m. every morning, probably leaves at 9 p.m., and you're going to tell me that we're just going to tank. Like, what am I doing all this for? Why am I spending all these hours away from my family when you guys just want to, whatever.
And with a career that can end, you know, average NFL career is 4 to 5 years. You really don't have all of that time to be losing games. Like, you're trying to win. You're trying to win every week you're out there because you're sacrificing a lot. So while I get it from the fan perspective, you want the quarterback, but there are other ways you could get a quarterback without having to tank for a top guy. Like, you know, I don't want to talk about the whole Dak Prescott thing, but if the Raiders, let's say, are in between picks 12 and 16, right, in the draft order in 2025, and they feel like they need a quarterback. Now, the quarterback class supposedly isn't going to be as good as it was next year.
Yeah.
But you can always trade. There's free agency. There are guys who are going to be disgruntled or want to make a move. I mean, we just saw Kirk Cousins go from Minnesota to Atlanta. So you don't have to tank to get your franchise guy or your starting quarterback. There are other ways. There are other means of getting your quarterback. It's just a matter of what are you willing to give up? What are you willing to do to get that quarterback?
Yeah. No, that's true. That's true. Going into this training camp, is there anyone that is like a potential surprise cut, a cut candidate that you're just like, I don't know if he's going to make it?
That's a good question. Other than, okay, so I'll throw.
Don't say my guy. I got a feeling you're going to say my guy, but we'll see. We'll see.
I'll throw out this name, and I hope he doesn't get cut because I think there could be some potential there. Byron Young.
Oh, okay. No, I'm with you.
We haven't heard anything about Byron Young. Even in the spring practices, sometimes you hear glowing reports about guys who had a disappointing rookie year or didn't play much.
And bounce back.
Kind of hype them up a little bit. I haven't heard a word about Byron Young. And now when you add Christian Wilkins to the mix, Adam Butler's back, John Jenkins is back, Tyree Wilson may move inside for a pinch and sub packages. Where's Byron Young's role going to be? Now, is he going to be like the next Matthew Butler who doesn't make the initial 50-man roster? Because remember last year, now Matthew Butler's a 5th-round pick, but still you expected a 5th-round pick second year. He's going to make the back end of the roster. Didn't even make the initial roster. He spent most of the year on the practice squad. does Byron Young get cut and they bring him back on the practice squad? Because if he does, as a 3rd-round pick, that's kind of an eye opener.
Yeah, and plus it would also depend on who wanted him. Like, was that more of a Ziegler pick, or was it someone that that Patrick Graham was pounding the table for? But it's hard to think that it would be because he never got on the field. I mean, even Nesta played more than him, and Nesta got cut and put on the practice field and brought back up before you saw. So I don't know, man. I don't know.
A little worried about him.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. That's a good one. You got anyone else that's that would be like more of a shocker that maybe got more snaps?
As far as on the team last year, or maybe like a new guy that they signed.
Yeah, well, it could be someone that we signed to. I mean, someone that most people think that might contribute, but you're just like, I don't even know if he makes it out.
Michael Gallup kind of worries me.
Yeah.
Simply because now he had some good years with the Cowboys before they drafted CeeDee Lamb. But you got to remember, if you are the 4th or 5th receiver on the depth chart, you have to play on special teams.
Yeah.
And Michael Gallup has no special teams experience. Like he doesn't take snaps on special teams because he was used to playing a big role in Dallas. Before his injury. Now he got injured and he kind of fell off the map a bit, but Michael Gallup, if he's going to make the roster, he either A, has to surpass Trey Tucker and take some of those snaps as the wide receiver 3, or B, he's going to have to start taking snaps on special teams. If he does neither, he's probably going to be cut. And I know a lot of Raider fans, when he was signed, was like, oh, Michael Gallup pretty solid, and assuming he's going to make the roster. But because he doesn't have that special teams experience, he may get left off the list.
That's a good point. And even the way like they changed some of the special teams anyway with like the kickoff and stuff. Like I was thinking about this a few weeks ago, but so like, you know how you always have some of those extra players, you fill out your roster with extra players, whether linebackers or whatever. Like what do you want on the field on kickoffs with the new kickoff rule? It's like, what type of athlete do you want out there? I mean, because the way it's set up, I mean, I don't know. I would almost want some guys that can. I don't know. I was kind of going back and forth in my mind, like the traditional lineup. I wouldn't necessarily need that.
Right. Like I think it's gonna hurt linebackers that don't have athleticism and speed.
Exactly.
So because the way it's set up is you can't move until the ball's in this certain zone and the returner touches the ball. So you got to be able to accelerate really fast. It's not like you're running down a field, you can pick up speed. You got to be able to, out of your stance, have some burst.
Yeah.
So you want some athletic guys. Now, when you look at these 40-yard dashes during the scouting combine, coaches may have been paying attention a little more to the 10-second split. So the first 10 seconds of that run,
get off.
Guys who have a quick get off, that burst, you want that on your kickoff coverage team now, with the way the rules are set up and how the coverage team can't move until ball's in the zone and return touches the football.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Cause that's why I was even thinking, like, do you have more safeties on your team now? Guys that can run, guys that aren't too small, but they can still go down there and make contact and at least get in someone's way if you need to block and all that stuff. So I don't know. I'm curious to see what the strategy is going to be for that. Just kind of listening to our special teams coach, you can tell he kind of gets off on the whole strategy piece of it. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of what they come up with on that.
It definitely, to me, hurts like the Curtis Boltons of the world, because it's like, as you said, you want a little more speed out there and acceleration, and it definitely helps the back end safeties who don't necessarily play a lot in big nickel or in defense, and they got the 4.4 speed. They just don't have the coverage, or they just not playing a lot of snaps on defense. So I think you'll see probably more safeties and these hybrid linebacker safety defenders that you get a lot more.
The Palomals,
right?
And so
those 220, 230 pound hybrid linebacker
tweeners.
Safety guys, that the tweeners that don't necessarily play a specific position, linebacker or safety, but they could play both depending on the coverage. or what the offense is giving you, those are the guys you'll see a lot more, in my opinion. On that's who I would put on these kickoff or coverage teams.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I'm just it's going to be interesting. I just can't wait. And then when I look at who I think, if there's any surprise cuts,
who was your guy that you were afraid that I was going to mention?
Well, no, I honestly thought you were going to say, and I keep hearing it from my boy, man. But for some reason, he thinks Divine Diablo, man.
Now, really quick, I'll give you my thoughts on Divine Diablo. I'm not as high on him as other Raider fans because I still think he has issues in coverage. He allowed a passer rating of above 100, which is not good.
Yeah.
But as far as if you want someone who's, run defense wise, he still has some value. I don't think he's a cut candidate, a surprise cut candidate. I think they're gonna, because they gave him the green dot too, so there was just some trust in him to get guys in position and get a line properly. So they have some trust in him. I don't see them cutting Divine Diablo. I don't see him being a Raider beyond this season, but I don't see him.
Yeah, see, like this, like Masterson over Diablo. I say I don't know, man. I mean, I get the injuries an issue, but I'm not as low on Diablo like some people are. There's really some people, because they love old Tommy Eichenberg too, especially Severe Raiders. Shout out to my boy. Actually, he don't like Tommy at all, but yeah, but there's a lot of people that really think that that he's going to steal some reps from Diablo. So I don't know. They're two different type of linebackers, but I can't see that happening. So
I'm just not as high on Diablo. I mean, I've seen a lot of people say Diablo. I've heard a few people said the Divine Diablo deserves an extension. I'm like, he needs to get in line behind Malcolm Kuntz and Robert Spillane if he's getting an extension, because those two guys deserve a lot more than he does.
Yeah, his thing is injuries, man. But he showed flashes to me. But I mean, like, if you hear kind of how I don't know if you saw the Max's podcast, hearing Max and Nate Hobbs, how they were talking about him. I think it was Nate Hobbs. No, it wasn't Nate Hobbs. It was Max and someone. But they were like raving about Diablo. They were like, don't be surprised if he's the one that's going to have a standout Pro Bowl type year. So I don't know. You ain't buying it?
I ain't buying it, man. I get these players trying to hype up their teammates. I totally get it. I watched a lot of Divine Diablo. I just wasn't impressed last year. Like, he coming into the offseason last year, he was supposed to be the guy who's supposed to take this tremendous leap. And while he played well in spots, I just didn't see that big leap from him.
Yeah. No, I don't know, man. I don't know. I just
didn't see it.
So what which year 2 players do you expect to see to have the biggest bounce back year? Or I won't say bounce back year, but who'll show the biggest development from year 1 to year 2?
Easily is Tyree Wilson. And I know Tyree Wilson's not starting because Malcolm Kuntz is going to be that starter opposite Max Crosby. But I said this on my show, Silverback Today, that there's not as much pressure as you would think on a top 7 pick like Tyree Wilson coming into the second year, because he's not going to be the starter, because everyone's looking at Malcolm Kuntz, right? Mm-hmm. Malcolm Kuntz and Max Crosby, that's supposed to be the duo right there, right? Tyree Wilson not even starting, may move inside in a pinch. He can kind of play within himself and not have the spotlight on him on every snap. Like, he's got to have 10 sacks, 10 plus sacks. He's got to have 10 plus tackles for loss. He's got to have 40 pressures. I don't see anyone saying that because of the fact that Max Crosby is going to draw most of the attention. Then Christian Wilkins is going to draw a lot of attention on the interior. And those are probably going to be your 2 top pass rushers. And then you add Malcolm Kuntz to that, probably on some downs would be your second best pass rusher behind Max Crosby. And Tyree Wilson is kind of like, well, he's like the 4th guy. And I think that's a perfect position to be in if you're a top 8, top 7 pick, and you're coming into your second season after missing a lot of the last offseason because you're recovering from a foot surgery. A lot of people are criticizing your slow get off, and you have Baldy coming at this dude's neck. That had me laughing because I had never seen Baldy that fired up.
Warren Sapp was the one that got me.
They were crushing Tyree
Oh
Wilson,
man.
but he is not going to have that spotlight on him this year, and I think that's good for him because then he doesn't have to worry about the pressure, all the spotlight, all the eyes are on me, and I think he's gonna. I'm not saying he's gonna have 12 plus 10 plus sacks, but if he gets 7-8 sacks and 20 to 25 pressures, I would say it's a pretty big leap for him.
So do you think that? So how do you think the Raiders are feeling? Like, do you think that they hope that he steps up so he can be that other end, and then they may not have to pay Malcolm Kuntz?
And that's what I was getting to.
Yeah.
If he steps up and Tyree Wilson looks like that dude, then it gives them the flexibility to say, we really like Malcolm Kuntz, but we're not cuffed to having to pay him to have a edge rushing mate for Max Crosby, because this guy Tyree Wilson, who we drafted in the first round and we expected to be a big time playmaker, is now looking like a big time playmaker. So it gives them options of what they want to do with their edge rusher position, which is a good problem to have.
Yeah. He yeah, I don't know. I've always liked Kuntz. You know, I always like him. But yeah, I'm almost worried that if he has, you know, a pretty decent season, we already know he's going to want the bag. He's going to expect the bag. And it's almost like they want Tyree. Like if Tyree shows any kind of progression, they might use that as leverage. Like, hey, and I don't know. I mean, we'll see what happens. But
now, if I wanted to go with a guy who's not the obvious pick to maybe take a big leap, and this is probably my heart talking because I talked him up when the Raiders drafted him, Jakorian Bennett.
Let's go, Mo. Let's go. Let's go. Talk your talk. Hold on. Talk your talk. Say what you gonna say, Mo. Everybody listen.
Jakorian Bennett. When the Raiders drafted Jakorian Bennett, I said he should have been a day 2 pick. And because the cornerback position was loaded when he was drafted last year, I thought that pushed him down a round or two. Now he struggled, had some penalty issues, had some injury issues there, maybe over aggressive at certain times. But I think Jakorian Bennett, assuming he wins that starting job over Brendan Faison or whoever they bring in, or maybe it's MJ Devonshire or DeCamerion Richardson who steps up as rookies, I think Jakorian Bennett could take a big leap. And if he can, the Raiders will have their starting quarterbacks for the foreseeable future. They will have Jack Jones under contract for another 2 years. They will have Jakorian Bennett, who's on a rookie deal. Nate Hobbs in the slot. You probably bring him back next year because he's on an expiring contract. But Jakorian Bennett is the guy that I'm hoping if he takes a big leap, that defense can go to the next level.
Oh man, you don't. Hey, shout out to Severe. He said, I feel sorry for TRS. Chris is about to. Yes, you're right, Severe. TRS is not going to hear the end of it. I can't wait till our next show. My big bro Turf right there. He knows. Man, I give them hell about, man. See, guys, that is why Mo is on CNN. That's why you can catch Mo on CNN, because those takes like that. You hear that? Nah, man. But no, you're right, man. My chat always get on me for being like a Jakorian Bennett like fanboy, man. But I just believe in him, man. I really do. So
I honestly thought he was the forgotten guy coming out of Maryland, and all the spotlight went to the other side of the field. And I was like, well, Jakorian Bennett is pretty good, but it's just the other guy was drafted in the first round. So they're going to give more hype. They're going to give more hype to Deonte Banks, who's with the Giants now. But Jakorian Bennett on the other side of the field could be he has the physical tools already. Again, he just needs to be a little less aggressive.
Yeah, less handsy.
Yeah. And that's a problem for a lot of young quarterbacks. They got to learn to use their feet rather than use their hands. And I think in the second year, if he learns to do that, and I forgot which coach did this, and I think multiple coaches do this now. They have cornerbacks play with boxing gloves on.
Yeah, so they can't grab.
They can't grab. And I think that's the technique that the Raiders should consider with Jakorian Bennett.
Yeah. Did Gruden do that?
I'm not sure, but
I remember seeing a coach. Yeah, I remember hearing about it. Yeah, they wear boxing gloves so they can't, they got to use their feet and move their hips.
Use their feet.
Yeah, exactly. So that's I agree. Because I think what's his name was the same way. He was bigger. Jerry Porter Jr. You know, he was real handsy, but you know, he had a good rookie season, you know, for the most part. So
Yep.
I don't know, man. That's I'm glad you said that. So, you know,
I think I think people give up too quickly on some of these rookies. Sometimes they have an underwhelming or a bad year, and people just throw them away. And I'm like, give it some time. Sometimes it takes a year or two. Certain positions are harder than others to translate to the NFL. Tight end is another one. And cornerback, when you're going up against these top receivers who are coming into the league bigger, faster, stronger, you know, give that cornerback some grace time.
Yeah. Yeah. And plus, it's like you got to think last year when he started, I mean, who his mentor probably was probably Marcus Peters. You know, and honestly, I mean, and Marcus Peters he was never the best, like, technically sound corner. Now he had great instincts, and that's what caused him to be able to, you know, make plays on the ball, get his hands on the ball, which he was great at. But Marcus Peters also got burnt a lot too. You know, he would get killed on double moves, and you know, it's one of those. You know, it's one or the other, and maybe Bennett took some of those bad habits, and that's why he got dusted a few times.
I didn't understand it when they were bringing in Marcus Peters, when they signed him, and people were calling him like he could be a mentor in the locker room. I was like, that was never Marcus Peters though. Like
ever.
No, like he's
the guy who's gonna fight. Yeah, he'll be fighting on the other team and flicking off other. He's not the guy you want to mentor your young corner, man.
Exactly. If you're thinking about bringing in like a Casey Hayward type, then yeah. But Marcus Peters, that was never his thing. Being a mentor, I was like, that doesn't make sense to me. But whatever.
No, that's so true. But yeah, it just cracks me up, man. So, what's your thoughts? So do you think? So the guy that I usually say, because everyone knows I do think Jakorian's going to have a big jump, but like I still think Trey Tucker is going to be the guy that's going to really take that next step, man. Just because of everything that I'm hearing, just about his work ethic, he's just, you know, talking about he's like hip to hip with Davante, trying to learn everything he can learn. I just have a good hope for him, man.
I just want Trey on the return team. I just want to make sure Trey, you know, holds down that role because he can use that speed. I go back to my worry about him possibly losing snaps. Like he's not going to be the guy to have 80 catches and over 1,000 yards. That's not a reality for him with Davante on the team, with the way Jacoby Myers played last year. You add in Brock Bowers to the mix. He's just not going to have a lot of value. So it's going to be important for him to make the most of the opportunities he does get. And he may get 50 targets, if that. And he's going to have to be able to show that he's made a leap, because one of the other problems he had was keeping his feet in bounds on some of those sideline throws.
I want to see if
the
ball.
He would like bob it, wouldn't be able to catch it cleanly, and it's out of bounds. You know, so I want to see if he's able to correct that in the preseason, because we saw that issue in the preseason last year. So if he's able to do that, he'll get more opportunities. But it could still be few and far between with all the mouths that the quarterback is going to have to feed between the wide receiver and the tight end position. So while I like Trey Tucker as someone who could bring something different to the offense, because he's the speediest threat in that group, how many opportunities is he going to get? Is he going to be able to take full advantage of them?
Yeah, that's a good point. Man, shout out to my boy Leo, man. He says, shout out to Mo for making our point about JB and telling the haters he's going to ball out.
I'm telling you, I was a big Bennett guy coming out. I
remember that too. I remember that. Yeah, because
honestly,
just like I tell everybody, I mean, Deonte Banks, I mean, he was a dog. I mean, and the fact that, you know, teams automatically are going to stay away from Deonte Banks in college. Jakorian didn't give up no touchdowns his last year playing. I mean, that's you know, and that's in I don't think his last year. Well, yeah, what's his name was still there. Marvin Harrison Jr. was in the Big Ten. There was some other big guys that were there. So I don't know, man. It was I'm Team JB at the end of the day.
I'm still Team JB as well.
There we go. Before we wrap it up, what are your expectations, or like what do you think Brock Bowers' stat line is going to look like? Because me personally, I try to tell people that I could see Bowers having a better rookie season than LaPorta, because I think he's a better tight end. Like, I mean, I think all across the board, he's a better tight end. You know, he's going to get a lot of one-on-one. I mean, he's going to have a lot of matchup problems. Like, people think I'm crazy that I think he can have that big of a season. Am I bugging?
I don't think you're bugging, but it goes back to my Trey Tucker point that it's going to be hard for him to get enough value.
Opportunities.
Right. Because, again, if you look at the way Jakobi Meyers played last year, and I know it's going to be a different offense, but the dude had over 800 receiving yards.
Mm-hmm.
And Davante Adams is your number one. So with Sam LaPorta in Detroit, Amon-Ra St. Brown is there, but they didn't really have a number 2 wide receiver who's gobbling up all the targets. Josh Reynolds was okay. Jameson Williams, you know, he had his injury issues, and then he was kind of a spark plug, didn't have a ton of volume there. So LaPorta was able to kind of be that, in some cases, that number 2 guy. Brock Bowers may be the third option, maybe in some cases, maybe the fourth option, depending on what the read is. So I'm interested to see how is he used. Again, I feel like he's going to be an oversized wide receiver for early part of his season. But how, you know, are they going to get him the football? Are they going to feed him the football? Because he's kind of was the focal point of that Georgia offense. But he's not going to be with the Raiders. So he's going to be a little further down the totem pole. So I don't think he'll have a LaPorta-like season. I would say over 50 catches isn't is easily plausible for him. 600 plus yards, easy plus, because I think he'll have a bigger stat line than Michael Mayer, just because of the athlete he is.
Yeah.
So, and again, you got to feature that. I don't think he's going to be LaPorta level, but I think people are going to be surprised. Like, wow, they got Michael Mayer, they got Davante Adams, Jakobi Meyers, and Brock Bowers is still able to produce. I'm not calling him offensive rookie of the year or anything, but I think his numbers are going to be pretty solid.
Okay. Really, my last thing for you, man. So I know you gave the prediction of 8-9. That's what I saw you officially stand on. Are you staying there, or is there any moves that we could make in this offseason that can get us in a winning record and possibly into the playoffs? Is there anything that we can do?
If you can, if Aiden O'Connell can gain some mobility, then I would bump it up to 2 wins if you give Aiden.
All right, now you asking for a genie in the bottle, man. Now come on, man.
If we get Aiden O'Connell to run a 4.8 or something like that.
But you know what? I think his 40 time was a 4.8 or 4.9 or something.
Really?
I think so. I could almost swore. I remember looking it up, and I'm like, in fact, I think his 40 time may even been faster than Jimmy's. I couldn't believe it, but I saw it. Let me look that up, man.
We can get Aiden O'Connell a little more athleticism, because that's been my biggest knock with him, and I think that'll be the one thing that can hold him back. Because you can get better at reading defenses and getting the ball out quicker, and being able to put your guys in position, anticipation throws. But he's never gonna be. I'm not saying he has to be Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts or anything. But in today's league, with the way these defenders are playing, the way the pass rush is coming at you, you got to be able to at least evade a little pressure with some consistency.
Yeah, no, I agree. It said, let's see, on this website, I don't believe that at all. They said he ran a 4.7 at Purdue's Pro Day. I'm not.
Well, the Pro Day numbers.
Pro Day, yeah.
The Pro Day numbers, not the Pro Day numbers.
It's funny at the Pro Day, they're always a little bit taller too. A little bit taller, a little bit faster.
Exactly.
Oh man, that's awesome. Well, Mo, man, I really appreciate you, man, taking the time to talk to me, man. I'm so excited about this daggone training camp, man. I'm definitely looking forward to, everything that you got going on. Is there anything that's that we should know about, like at the new facility where they're doing the training camp? Like anything that you're hearing, any like just any insider news that you know?
Nothing right now. I'm sure things will come up as they start reporting at the end of the week, beginning of next week. You probably hear more about it because, as you know, they're in Costa Mesa this year, not in Las Vegas. So different facility, different spot for them. So I'm sure you you'll start hearing the reports by Sunday, Monday, or what's going on at training camp, and just kind of get the feel of how things are going to be run in the Antonio Pierce era of the Raiders.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
What I know all my not fans, but all my subscribers and supporters, they already know you, man. But for the ones that have been hiding under a rock, where can they find you? Where can they find your work and everything?
Man, you got a minute for this one? Because
Let's do it. Let's do it. You got the stage.
All right. Bleacher Report. I'm right over there covering the entire league, all 32 teams. I give a fair shake to the Raiders because I'm going to tell you a lot of these national writers and reporters don't watch Raider football. I do.
Yes.
I watch them all the time. So I give the fair coverage to the Raiders over at Bleacher Report, even as a national writer there. Also, I have Bleacher Report live streams, Raider Focus. That is not league-wide. That is specifically for Raider fans. Once the season comes around, I'll have 2 or 3 Raiders shows per week over at Bleacher Report. Download the app and tap in with me. Shows are really straightforward. They're usually about 30 to 45 minutes, so I'll get you in and out. We talk about what's going on, the hottest news, latest happenings, what I think, your thoughts. I like to open the floor up to the people who join, because the people who join, they'll tell you this. If you're in the chat and you join my Bleacher Report lives, I always open up the floor to my audience to give your comments, and we can have a conversation about what you're thinking, not just about what I'm thinking. Silver and Black today with my co-host Scott Branson. I'm over there twice a week. We usually drop an episode Tuesdays and Thursdays. If big breaking news drops, we do an emergency podcast. We'll drop it right away. Also, now, as Chris joked, I'm also on CNN, True TV, TNT Sports Tonight. I get a lot of Raider talk in there too, because they're in the news cycle. So a lot of times I'll drop some fantasy football gems. I'll talk about the entire league. And, of course, I'll get to our Raiders.
I love it. I love it, man. Just like I tell everybody, man, hardest worker in showbiz, man. Hardest worker in showbiz. I definitely appreciate it. And I'm definitely going to make a daggone short of you talking about Jakorian Bennett, and I can't wait.
Man.
Everybody, I want you guys to make sure you're there for the Raider Syndicate show on Sunday. I'm going to light the Raider Rundown. I'm going to light him up, and I'm going to light up Turf. I'm going to light both of them up. Shout out to Jakorian Bennett, man. but Mo, man, again, I appreciate, you coming by, man. Hopefully we can just continue connecting throughout the season, man. But I definitely enjoy all your content, man, and definitely keep it up, man. You make us all proud.
Also, Sports Not, twice a week Raiders articles there. How can I forget about Sports Not? Twice a week Raider articles over there. But I will say this too, Chris, and the reason I made time to join you in this podcast is, and I'm not into calling out names or anything, but a lot of these, people out here just want to hear themselves talk. And I like how you kind of open up the floor, kind of like how I do in my Bleacher Report Lives, where you let your guests speak their mind. You're not talking over your guests. You kind of let them say their piece, and then we can have a discussion about it, whether you agree or disagree. That's secondary to just having a good Raider discussion. I always say it's always about, like, if I'm going to a bar, if I'm going to a lounge, if I'm going to an eatery, and I just want to have a conversation about the Raiders with a person, those are the most comfortable conversations to have.
Exactly.
It doesn't have to be hostile, even if you don't see eye to eye on a certain opinion. And you run a great podcast, you're a great host. So that's why I come on here and don't mind talking and laughing about the Raiders with you, whether the Raiders are whether I think the Raiders are going to be 8-9, or whether you think they're going to be 14-3, whatever the case may be. We can laugh about it, we can talk about it, and enjoy Raider football, enjoy sports talk.
Yeah, for sure, man. I appreciate that. That's one thing I try to pride myself on, is really being authentic, having different opinions on my show, and just knowing that, hey, it's a safe place. We can have a healthy debate. We can agree, disagree, but at the end of the day, we all want our team to do well. So,
that's all about.
Yep. Well, I appreciate it. Everybody in the Shield Squad, man, I appreciate all you guys for coming through, man. Make sure you guys hit the like button on the way up or on the way out. And make sure you check out my boy Mo, not only on all his social medias, but, on his podcast. And also go check him out on Bleacher Report. The dude is fire. He's the best in the business, man, for sure. So, like I always say, guys, players and coaches come and go, but we must always protect the Shield. You guys be safe. Thank you. Love you.
We be them Raiders. We be them Raiders. We be them Raiders just